The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got another Men of Tomorrow today with the podcast in which we talk to the players that are not quite at the major league level yet, but are getting pretty close. And today we've got one that I've been really looking forward to for a few months now. I'm joined by Rio Gomez, left-handed relief pitcher, most recently for the Portland Sea Dogs. How are you doing today, Rio?
Ed, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, I'm super excited to have you here. I started working for Sox prospects on their social media back in 2020. And, that was a season where not much happened. But 2021, I have a very vivid memory of you going on this absolute run towards the end of the season where you just were. It was like 2 months. I don't think you gave up a single run.
Yeah, it was a little over 2 months, and it was just an unbelievable feeling that just kept running and kept going. And it was one of those where you find the zone, and I was able to stay in the zone for 2+ months and just keep it going.
Yeah, it was just so much fun to check the box scores during that and be like, okay, he's at 11 games now. Oh, now they've brought him up to AA. Let's see. Oh no, it's still continuing. So I've been a fan of yours since that run. And but for those who aren't as familiar with your game, could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm a left-handed reliever. I was drafted by the Red Sox in the 36th round of 2017, round that doesn't even exist anymore in the draft. So that makes me feel good. That's always something I like to hold on to and remember, especially now that part of the draft doesn't even exist anymore. Feel like the last of the dinosaurs out there in that sense. And left-handed reliever, been with the Red Sox 6 years, going on 7 years now, and just slowly climbing my way up.
What do you throw? What kind of pitches do you throw?
Fastball, slider, changeup, and I would say my slider has really become my secondary pitch in these last couple of years.
Is that your favorite one to throw?
Absolutely. And so midway through 21, I actually lowered my arm slot a little bit. And with that came the ability to throw a breaking ball. Before I was always over the top, and I struggled to throw a breaking ball to consistently supinate my wrist and be able to curveball, slider, cutter. It wouldn't matter. I threw a curveball, but it just wasn't anything special. So I was really just a fastball changeup pitcher. And then once I lowered my slot a little bit, somewhat Chris Sale-esque, I would say, a Walmart version of Chris Sale is a good way to describe myself. And but the breaking ball just came along with it, and it's been a game changer.
Oh, I'm going to be referring to you as Walmart Chris Sale moving forward, just so you know.
Perfectly okay with that one.
Was that hard? Was that a hard mechanical process to learn? How long did that take for you to change that slot?
No, actually, surprisingly, it was on the fly. It was pretty quick. I'd opened up that season not doing so well, and I just during catch play, I'd always mess around and throw sidearm at the end. And I think what I realized is that that was probably always my natural slot. But growing up, I was one of the few lefties on every team, if maybe sometimes only the only lefty on a lot of teams, little league, club ball, whatever it be. And I was always just emulating what all the other guys were doing, all the right-handed throwers, and everyone, was pretty much over the top. So I just followed with that. But then once I made that switch, it just felt a lot more loose, a lot more comfortable, almost like playing wiffle ball in the backyard. And I realized that this is probably what I was meant to be doing from an early age on. I've just been fighting it all along.
Did you find that you were naturally inclined to that and then coaching kind of pointed you away from it? Or was it just something that you had never really been exposed to?
I think it was something that I'd never really been exposed to. Growing up, I never really played the left side of the infield. I was never that shortstop or the third baseman or even the second baseman where you're watching, those guys, they make all sorts of throws from all different slots just because wherever the ball's hit, whatever the situation is, they have to make the throw and get the throw across. And that might be sidearm, over the top, under whatever it might be. And so growing up, I was never exposed to that kind of practice with reps. I was always first base, outfield, pitcher, just the boring left-handed positions that we get stuck to and limited to. So yeah, I wouldn't say I was ever really deterred, but it was just something that I just had never realized I was capable of, I suppose.
Yeah. And when did you start playing baseball? How old were you?
Well, my dad got me in there early. I want to say I was probably at least 3 years old, doing t-ball. And I have pictures of me at that age with my dad just on the field. And yeah, t-ball started at that age, YMCA t-ball.
Yeah. Now, I know your dad was a reporter, but did he play also?
No, I get that question a lot, and no, he didn't make it past JV of high school. So he went to the same high school, and it was the same year as Jose Canseco, and they were friends.
Oh, wow.
Coral Park High School down in Miami, but he didn't play past JV. But he loved baseball. That was always his first love, and so I think he knew even then at that point, like, all right, I can't play anymore, but I'm gonna be around the game. I'm gonna find a way to be around the game.
Yeah. And in turn, I'm sure that helped you be around the game too. My dad didn't exactly have a career in baseball, but he loves it. And, like I was sort of, it's always around you no matter what when you have that kind of passion for it. But when did you start realizing for yourself, like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. I might be able to be pretty competitive with this.
I don't think there really ever was a time in my life at that, like in that sense, because I was a Little League All-Star when I was 11 and 12. But then after that, I really wasn't one of the better players or the best player on the field. After that in club ball, I was the 13th guy on the 13 players on the team. And high school, I barely made the freshman team. I barely made the JV team. As a junior, I was on JV again. I repeated JV. I was cut as a senior altogether from high school. And so I never really had that edge growing up that you see a lot of guys, whether it be the college level or the professional level, where they were, these accolades that follow them around, whereas all state, all conference, all section, the best player at 13 in the club ball tournaments. That was never me.
But you kept persisting. You kept competing. Like what? How was it? Just like a love of the game that allowed you to keep doing that?
It was a love of the game and the support of my father, really. And it was really just those two things where it was like, well, let's keep trying. Let's keep pushing. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of stubbornness, a lot of pride that, that kept telling myself, like, this isn't it. This isn't how it's going to end. And so when I got cut my senior year from the high school team, I was distraught and obviously just caught by surprise. I was in complete shock. But at the time I thought, okay, well, this is the end of my baseball career. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school, and this is how it's going to end. And I had started applying to colleges. Even, before that senior year had started, I didn't know, like I said, like I was never this good player, this best player. So I never really thought that, is college baseball going to happen or anything, even much less past that. So I'd always thought about, plan B, applying to colleges. And I'd applied and got into San Diego State, and I was pretty set on going to San Diego State and just being a normal student, maybe join a fraternity, just get a degree, internships in the summer, the whole college route. And after I'd gotten cut from my senior year, it was kind of that fork in the road where it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do now? And I didn't want to go out like that. And so with the support of my dad and the love of the game, I ended up walking on to the junior college, Mesa Community College, which is a junior college near me, for my freshman year. And I ended up getting hurt during the year, redshirted that, or like finishing like redshirted that year. Went to summer ball up in Oregon. That's, I'd say, when like maybe things started to click. I hit 90 miles an hour. It was from the left side, just school started looking at me. And that's when University of Arizona came around. And they had initially told me that, oh, we'll look at you after your sophomore year of JUCO, the normal route, 2 years, junior college, transferring to D1. And I was like, okay, great. Well, I got all these schools that want to look at me in the fall. Never had this before, so this is just a step up on its own. And then like about 3 weeks before the school was about to start, Arizona called me again and they said, hey, one of our lefties just tore his UCL. Do you want a walk-on? You will give you the entire fall as a walk-on to try out for the team in the sense. And ended up making the team, played, traveled every weekend. And from there, things started to slowly pick up.
So I relate a lot to what you were saying about like, this is it for this is my senior year. I remember because I wasn't a very good baseball player, but I played a lot of tennis. And I remember it was my junior year and I didn't make the varsity squad. And I just remember punching this brick wall so hard that I think I broke a couple of my knuckles. I was so upset about it. Did you have some kind of visceral reaction like that? Where you were just like, where like you've been working towards this for how many years, and then they tell you can't do it. Like, how do you obviously bounce back from it, but how did you manage to do that?
I think initially, there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of crying. I never got angry and punched anything, unlike you, but I guess my fight or flight instincts are a little different than yours. And so, it was disheartening. It was just getting your heart ripped out. I mean, baseball's been my first love, and it was, instilled in me from an early age, and because of my dad and everything that, sports were always instilled, but baseball was very much encouraged. Not that any of the other sports were discouraged, but baseball was obviously, it's easy to fall in love with this game. And so, it was a lot of pain, a lot of crying, and then eventually it turned into fuel for motivation. And just that feeling of what it was like to get cut and being able to hold on to that feeling, especially for like the next couple of years after that, where it felt like I really needed that boost and that motivation to get me through this lonely path and journey that I decided to embark on.
Now you grew up in Arizona?
Yes. Yeah. Phoenix, Arizona, suburb called Ahwatukee, just south of Phoenix.
Gotcha. Yeah, I went to Arizona State for a bit, so I'm somewhat familiar with the area there. And that is a very competitive part of the country to be playing baseball then.
It is. I mean,
like, did you go to high school with anybody that like was a big name prospect or anything?
Yeah. So I went to high school with a player named Tyler Viza, and he got drafted out of high school. He was my same year. He made it all the way to AAA with the Phillies. Now he's pitching in Taiwan. But the rival high school was Mountain Point, and that was Cole Tucker, Scott Kingery, Kevin Crone, CJ Crone. There's a player named Joey Croletta. He played with the Red Sox for a few years, made up to double or AAA. And then one of our other high schools in the area that we'd play all the time was Cody Bellinger with Hamilton High School. And
yep, his dad was a firefighter. I forget which town it was in, but his dad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just so much talent out there.
There was a lot. And, you grow up and you get older and, you get to college and there's all these guys that were in the high schools in that area. And then, we get to the professional and the major league level and the minor league level. And you see all these guys that, you either played against with at high school or you knew of. And, so there's a lot of other, like Zach Davies went to a rival high school. I think he was a senior when I was a sophomore or a freshman. But you remember, we'd face him, not me because I was a pitcher, but seeing him, and it's just like, wow, like next thing you know, now he's a long-term big leaguer, and just a lot of other names like that where you're like, we were facing very good competition, and at the moment you didn't always know it, that it was where it stacked up compared to everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're seeing on the day-to-day, I'm sure it doesn't seem unusual or
you don't
anything
think
like that
until you look back now, and then you realize, oh, I was playing against Cody Bellinger for years on end, and He has an MVP sitting in his house.
That's gotta be. I mean, that's. I guess it's like that. It's like that Honus Wagner saying, "There's not much to being a ball player if you're a ball player." You know. But
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
when you were at U of A, I mean, that must have been going from being cut your senior year to being on. I mean, that's a legit college. That's D1. Like
Absolutely.
there are some really good players to have come out of there. I mean, how did you when you found out that you were getting on there? I mean, did you go out and celebrate right away, or was it just like, okay, what's the next thing?
There was a little moment of celebration, but it was also a rush because I had about 3 weeks until school was starting. So it was getting down to Tucson, getting my classes, getting registered, applying to college, all of that. And then it was, okay, now I got to move down to Tucson, bring everything. And so it was a quick rush, but there was definitely a couple moments when you step on the field in that first fall and you're like, wow, do I really belong with all these guys, all these players? And that infield, my first year, all 4 positions, every single one of them has made it to the major leagues. It was Bobby Dahlbeck at third base, Kevin Newman, who's now with the Reds, was with the Pirates, shortstop, Scott Kingery at second base, who's with the Phillies, and then JJ Matijevic, who just won the World Series with the Astros. And then we also had Willie Calhoun was there, who had made it to the show. Jared Oliva was an outfielder who had made it to the show. Cal Stevenson was an outfielder who's made it to the show. So you're around all this great competition and these great players, and it's very easy to look around and be like, do I fit in with all these guys? Like, I was just cut a year and a half ago for my senior year of baseball, and now I'm pitching to Bobby Dahlbeck in an inner squad and facing Kevin Newman, and it's a surreal moment.
When did you realize, like, okay, like I do belong here?
Probably a few inner squad outings into it, when I realized, like, okay, I can get these guys out. Like, I'm getting Bobby to ground out. I'm getting Kevin Newman to fly out. Whoever it is up to bat, and I'm realizing, like, okay, well, if I can get them out, then I for sure belong, and I can keep up with these guys.
What? Because I know Bobby was like, obviously he's a third baseman, first baseman now, but he was a two-way player in college, right?
Yes, he was, and he was one of the players where he made the game look so incredibly easy at the collegiate level, almost like like when you're 12 or you're watching the little leaguers play, and you're watching that one kid who's playing little league, and he is just leagues ahead of everyone else, where he's pitching, he's hitting and home runs, and he's pitching and throwing harder than everyone's striking everyone out. And that was Bobby at the collegiate level. And I mean, to this day, he was still one of the best college baseball players I've ever seen, where it came so easy that he was able to do both sides. It was Shohei Ohtani of college baseball, where he's not even practicing pitching during the week because he's throwing from third base all the time. And so, he's coming in to pitch, and he might not even warm up for the game, and he's just ripping off the tape as he's walking from third base up to the mound, and he's just going to go close the game out for us and sit 95 and throw one of the best changeups I've ever seen. And then the next day he's going to go hit a home run and a double and have 4 RBIs on the night. And it was incredible to watch.
Got to be fun having that for a teammate too, where you can see that and actually root for the guy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and then, you get to know him, and you know how good of a person he is and how good of a guy he is, that it was a no-brainer and a no-doubter that you're always going to root for this guy no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, just watching him he's had some very good moments with the Red Sox. Last season, it seemed like it was a bit of a struggle for him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's do you have any insight into how he's been spending this offseason preparing for, because it seems, he's still on the 40-man roster. It seems like there's an opportunity here with Cassis that, there needs to be a backup first baseman. Turner hasn't played a ton of first at the major league level. What's his work ethic like? Like, what does he do for preparation?
Man, he has really locked it in the last couple of years. Because he lives right here in Scottsdale. He doesn't live too far from me. He's probably a couple miles away, and we'll see each other from time to time. But he's become very focused and very locked in on his career. He doesn't go out and drink and party. I mean, he goes, he works out, he hits, he goes home. He goes, he hits, works out, goes home. And just living a very quiet life. And it's been, I mean, I think it's been great for him, regardless of like, what's been going on the field or, results wise. I think he's in a much better place these last few years, and just things are consistent, things are settled. And it's really great to see that turn on. He always had the work ethic. I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't have that in college, but I think he was at a different point where, the game came a little easier than others.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, oh gosh, my dad would always make this joke that when you get into MIT, there's still got to be like half the class is going to finish in the bottom half of MIT. And when you get to the majors, I would imagine it's kind of the same thing where it's like, yeah, everybody's a big fish there.
Exactly. Just at MIT, everyone's a genius. So just because you're a genius too doesn't make you the best of the best. And I mean, obviously that's no different in the baseball world. Everyone here is good, no matter what level you're at.
So, you got, like, as you were saying before, you got drafted in a round that doesn't exist anymore, the 36th round. Did you expect to be drafted that day? And what was the process like for you? Because I guess that would have been like the third day at that point?
Right. It was day 3. And man, I'll tell you what, that was the best and the worst day of my life all in one. Just in the sense of just how much of a roller coaster it was. Because I think my senior year, it started off really good. The first half was great, and I expected to get drafted. And then the second half of the year, it kind of hit a road bumps, and it wasn't as great. And I thought, okay, well, I think I'll still get drafted. But if not, I have this 5th year available. And so I always knew, like, okay, well, I could always do a grad transfer, go to a different school, and at least have one more year of baseball if I didn't get drafted. But leading up to the draft, I really thought I was going to be drafted, I don't know, at some point in the teens, late teens, somewhere around there. I mean, and obviously I fell all the way to 36, but I think what I've realized, like, as time went on is then by learning, like, from other guys' stories, is that basically whatever round you're expected to be drafted in, double it. It seems like a lot of guys who thought they were going to be 5th rounders ended up being like 10th rounders. And if you thought you were going to be in the early day 2, in the 11, 12s, 13s, you ended up being like a 20th rounder. And so that's what I realized. And then after I'd gotten drafted, I mean, so then that's what happened was, so the rounds were flying by and they start to pick up towards the end because, it's quick. It's just like, boom, Milwaukee Brewers select this, Arizona Diamondbacks select this, Seattle Mariners select this, Boston Red Sox select this. And it's just flying by. And the rounds are going by, and I just got to about 25, 26, 27. I'm like, wow, I don't think I'm going to get drafted. Round 30 comes. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm turning off the TV. I'm going to bed. This, all my hopes and expectations for this day have just been dashed. And I went to my room. I shut the door. And I remember maybe 5-10 minutes later, my parents are yelling from downstairs, "Hey, you got drafted. It happened." And I didn't get a call ahead of time from anyone on the Red Sox or the scout, Vaughn, who ended up drafting me. And so I had no idea. And I ran downstairs like, what? No way. And it was 36 rounds to the Boston Red Sox. And I mean, then it became the best day of my life at that point, because, it's just that roller coaster of the ups and downs. And it was just so joyous and so perfect. And then after that, it was a great celebration. It was a great time, and still a day I'll never forget.
What did your dad tell you going into that? Because he would obviously have a lot of insight into the draft process. Did he tell you, like, kind of like how to manage your emotions during it, or like what kind of advice did he have?
So as much as he did work around baseball, it was always the major league side. And so he really didn't have much more of an insight than anyone else to the draft or even the minor leagues. And so a lot of it was him learning vicariously as I'm learning, at the same time. I mean, we were learning together, because even though, he's been around baseball for 30 some years, it didn't matter where he didn't know enough about what, the minor leagues, or just, how things went, and with the draft and the whole process. And so he was learning and picking it up as I was going, and we were learning together. And obviously, people can tell you and advice and get you as prepared as possible, but nothing is going to, substitute for the real world experience, the actual experience that takes place with it.
Yeah. I mean, what did he say after you got drafted, though? Because it sounds like he and your mom were pretty pretty excited about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was his dream come true as well. And, he was crying, tears, hugs. I mean, just, one of the proudest days of his life. And all around, I mean, it's just an awesome day.
Were you a Sox fan growing up? Like, did you have any interest in the Red Sox before they drafted you?
Not necessarily. I grew up a Diamondbacks fan. When, the hometown team wins the World Series when you're 6 years old,
oh my God, that was a great team too. That 2001 team.
And that's your childhood right there. And then, as you get older, you realize the magnitude that, they destroyed the Yankee dynasty. I mean, that was really the fall. That was the end of the Yankee dynasty. They had been going on this tear of going to the World Series, winning the World Series, winning the World Series, winning the World Series. And then, they should have had that World Series too. And to lose in Game 7 against Mariano Rivera on a walk-off in the bottom of the ninth. And, I mean, that's those situations that you put yourself when you're 8 years old and you're playing wiffle ball. And you're like, all right, bottom of the ninth, tie game, 2 outs. So-and-so's up to bat. Here we go, And so I think at that point I was always a Diamondbacks fan. So I was never much of a Red Sox fan, but I'll tell you what, I never liked the Yankees. So it was always easy for me to cheer for the Red Sox. And then, you watch what the Red Sox did in 2004 and you're like, oh, that is awesome. And then you see Fever Pitch, still one of my favorite movies, and, the 30 for 30, 4 days in October, and all of these things lead up to it. And you're like, man, Red Sox are a cool organization. And I didn't know much about it. It's all the way other side of the country, but I was always a fan. And at that point, they started to grow on me.
I gotta show this. We got a comment here on what you just said. This is all capital letters. If you're listening to this from the Brad Chandler Show, our very own. I never liked the Yankees. Yes. So you just, I think you just made some friends here.
I was never a fan of the Goliaths. I always liked the Davids. I always liked the underdogs. And in my mind, the Red Sox always felt like the in that AL East battle that constantly went on every year, it felt like the Red Sox were the David year after year after year. And so, and in any sports, I never liked cheering for, the super team. I love watching the Cowboys lose. I'm a Dolphins fan, so I loved watching the Patriots lose. It was just those teams, I was like, yes, all right. Now let's see someone new win this. Who's the next underdog? So that always felt good.
Yeah, and I mean the Diamondbacks were definitely 2001. I mean that's a great place to start for that. I mean, so who is your favorite player from that team? Who is your favorite player growing up?
So I had 2 favorite players growing up. From the Diamondbacks, it was Tony Womack. He was.
I like that. I like that answer.
That was my favorite Diamondback growing up, number 5. And then my all-time player growing up was Andrew Jones.
Another very good answer there.
I never had the athleticism that those 2 did, or the speed that could run that those 2 did, and what they did in the outfield. But yes, Andrew Jones was my all-time player growing up, where I loved him, and just watching him, and I used to check the newspapers and the box scores, and just go see what did the Braves do? What did Andrew Jones do? Make sure I'm reading the right Jones, not the Chipper Jones that's in the box score, and just. But yeah, that was my number 1.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be feeling pretty good about his odds to get into the Hall of Fame now.
I am now, and what's funny is that so the first year he was eligible, he didn't receive many votes. He barely passed that 5%. And I remember my dad called Andrew and told him, he goes, "Hey, I voted you for the Hall of Fame this year, and I just want to let you know that I always thought you were a great player, but the real reason that I voted for you was because you were my son's favorite player growing up."
So it was kind of your vote for.
It was almost, yes, it was my vote. But you know what? I feel very confident that next year he's gonna find his way into the Hall, and I think it's deservedly so. I mean, what he did those first 7+ years in Atlanta was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's been cool seeing how much support he's gotten. I feel like defense is more valued now than it used to be. I don't know when that happened, but you think about some of these guys from the 90s, like Mike Piazza, players that were all bat, no glove. You don't see them, you're seeing that defensive renaissance in a way, I think.
Yeah.
But got a question here from Brad. If you weren't a baseball player, what would you be doing?
So originally I went into college as an engineering degree major. And I
What kind of
wasn't really,
engineering?
at the time I hadn't decided what kind of engineering. I've always had a passion for the environment. And so I thought, something with like, sustainability. So whether that is, just making buildings more sustainable through engineering, or, energy sources, something along those lines. And so I started my first year at U of A as a engineering degree major, and first fall went great. Got a 3.5, crushed it in the classes. Had no problem with the labs and balancing baseball. Then that spring came along, and we're flying, we're traveling, we're playing 4 days a week, practicing all the time. We fly every Thursday to wherever, UCLA, Stanford, whoever we're playing that weekend. And the grades took a toll. I realized how hard the balance was between school and baseball. And so at that moment, I told myself, I was like, all right, you need to make a decision. Do you want to be good at school, or do you want to be good at baseball? And so from there, I decided, all right, I'm going to change my major. So that way I can just have a little more flexibility and make things a little bit easier on myself, instead of staying up till 2, 3 a.m. every single night to complete calculus homework, and then chem homework, and then bio homework. And it just became too much of a grind.
What'd you end up switching to?
Environmental econ.
Oh, I mean, that still seems like that's like up your alley. It's just less math.
It was, exactly. And that's, yeah, I didn't want to, I didn't want like the easiest route possible. I still wanted something, especially after I'd completed all these science classes. I wanted to make sure these science classes were going to be used towards my next major, so that way I didn't just completely waste my time taking all these bios and chems and labs. And so I found this one, and I was like, all right, this is perfect. It's a good mix of the science, the economic side, and then also the environmental side. And I really enjoyed those classes.
Did you end up completing the degree, or did you get drafted before that?
So I was a redshirt junior when I got drafted, and I was a senior academically. So I graduated the same year that I got drafted, which is fantastic and a huge weight off my shoulders, in the sense that, I never had to go back to school. And I've seen dozens of my teammates who had to complete school in their off seasons or during the season. I'm just so grateful looking back to, like, wow, I'm glad I've never had to encounter that.
Yeah, so you mentioned, having a passion for the environment. Outside of baseball, what are some of your hobbies?
I love to be outside. I like hiking, golfing, camping, um, even like just like riding my bike outside. Just to me, like being outside is like my escape. And so even in season, I've just found ways to make sure I can keep, fulfilling that escape, and keep filling that jar with the marbles, and making sure that, at least on that Monday off day, I do something that's outside. Or maybe before the game, on during the day, I go walk around the city, or just get out, just get some fresh air, and keep everything in balance.
So, just to go back to your career a little bit, 2022 seemed like it was a bit of an off season for you with like you what was the injury that you were dealing with?
I got myocarditis
Oh,
from COVID. So it's
oh, gotcha.
inflammation of the heart muscle.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, no. I had something very similar happen after my booster. Wow, I that was not very reported.
It was not. Yeah, I did notice that it went undisclosed everywhere, but I mean, I don't think there's any reason for it to be a secret. But yes, I ended up missing all of spring training, March, April, May, and then I got to the season, around mid-June or wherever it was. And but yeah, so I missed half the season, and I just had to rest when I was in Florida. I just couldn't run, couldn't lift. I could only throw to 90 feet, just so at least my arm would stay alive, so it didn't just go dormant for 3 months. And then I came back, and I wasn't the same. And I mean, leading up to spring training, I'd been told, you're competing for a AAA job here. And then obviously I'd never had spring training. I got shut down immediately. And I think what was gathered was that, they told me, you'll go to Portland to start the year whenever you start. And then, once you're ready, we'll bring you up to Worcester at that point. And I never was able to find things to click. Obviously I was dealing things with my heart. I was feeling it all the time. So it's hard to stay focused on the batter at hand. But then also I just had trouble finding the zone. I've never really been much of a walk guy, but I started walking guys. I started hitting guys, and just yeah, it was an off season to the fullest, and it definitely became a year that just you look back, you reflect, you learn, and then wash it away.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you can do with it, and you'll have another opportunity now, or you must be excited for the season starting soon.
I can't wait. I actually leave here in 2 days on Thursday and begin my drive from Arizona to Fort Myers. And
Oh my God, you're doing the drive?
yeah, I do the drive. I did it last year. I did it last year by myself, and then I get my car up to the Northeast, and then I drove home from Maine last year by myself. It's one of those where it's like once you can accomplish it once, it's very very gratifying feeling, and you're like, wow, like I just made a cross country drive by myself, and then you feel like, all right, well, I can do this again, and I can do this again. Like it's not once you've done it once, you realize it's in the moment not great, but it's very accomplishable.
No, I mean, there's something satisfying about that too. Just seeing all these parts of the country kind of fly by and really experiencing all the states has to offer. I mean, what do you do like for those long stretches? Are you just like listening to the radio, or I guess podcasts, or
Yeah,
like playlists? Like, what do you do during that?
I listen to music for as long as I can until I get bored with that, and then I'll switch to podcasts for as long as I can until I get bored, and then I'll start making calls, family, friends, whoever, just to help pass the time. Especially the first half of this drive, it's all desert. I mean, you're going through West Texas, and it takes about 7-8 hours, and you're seeing nothing but the same from the moment you cross through El Paso till about you get to about mid Texas, San Antonio, Austin area, and then the scenery starts to change. That drastic change from desert to I guess what the environment in the South is like, where it's more trees and wooded and green and something you're not as used to out here in Phoenix. And so yeah, the first half of the drive is the hardest, but like what you were saying, it's a great way to experience the country, and playing baseball is one of those things that I'm incredibly grateful for, is how much of the country I've been able to see, because it's hard to see the country by plane, but by bus and by all these cities that we stop to and play, it's, I mean, I've basically seen the entire country minus the Midwest. I mean, in college, we play the entire Pac-12, so we're up and down the whole West Coast. We play in Texas. We play sometimes across the South, but then with the Red Sox, I mean, first stop was Lowell, Mass, and so you get that portion of New York and the Northeast and that Mid-Atlantic area, and then Greenville, South Carolina. So then you get the whole South, and that stretches from Georgia all the way to Virginia to Maryland to Kentucky, and then Salem, same thing, Virginia all the way up to Delaware, down to South Carolina and Myrtle Beach, and then now Portland, the Northeast, Pennsylvania, New York, all across. And so it's just one of those things where I love to look out the window and just see what's going on and pick it all up and take it all in.
Yeah, and I mean, now you get to say when like you hear about something in the news happening somewhere, you can say, "Oh, I've been there.
Right.
I know what it's like there." Do you have any places that you went to that really stand, like when you think about all of these places that you've gotten to travel to, your mind just kind of immediately goes there?
Yeah, I would say, what? I think the Red Sox orgs are very lucky that the cities that they are in are fantastic. We go on the road and we go to see these other cities and towns, and it makes you grateful that I loved Greenville, South Carolina. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is beautiful, and the park is right in downtown, and the city is much alive. And then Portland, Maine, same thing. Absolutely love it. In the summertime, you can't beat it. The weather's unbelievable. The city's right on the harbor. The food, the weather. There's just so much to do, and it's really great home cities to be in, where you spend most of your time.
Yeah, that actually brings me into the first of our Twitter questions, and this is from at the Eddie Davis. Is Portland, Maine an underrated food hotspot?
Absolutely. I think all of Maine is underrated, and just almost this little secret that's just tucked away deep in the Northeast. And for people in Massachusetts, obviously it's not a secret as much, but all these people out west and anywhere else in the country, I don't think they know how great Maine is, and the food is unbelievable. The seafood, I mean, it's not just the lobster, it's the mussels, the shrimp, the clams, the fish, everything, and it's all caught within a 10, 20-mile radius right outside of Portland and brought in right there to the ports. And yeah, that's some of my favorite restaurants. There's unbelievable seafood and then unbelievable Asian food.
I haven't heard that recommendation as much for Portland. Do you have any places? Because I go there, I'm not going to say regularly, but I usually go up there a couple times a year.
Yeah, there was a few Asian spots that I really liked. Oh man, I would have to look them up and text you, but there's a couple good sushi spots that I really enjoyed, and then there's also a good Thai spot, and I can't remember the name of the Thai spot, but it's right there on the main street.
I tell you what, I'll hit you up for this later, and then I'll share it on Twitter for everybody. And it'll probably be it'll be nice for Sea Dogs fans to have another place to check out when they're there.
The crispy duck at that Thai place is something I'll never forget. Where I was like, wow, this is it right here, and I make sure I go back.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, the older I get, I don't have sex dreams anymore. I have food dreams. I remember meals like very, very detailed and graphically.
Yeah, just you can taste it, you can feel it, you can smell it. It's like, wow, this is the place. This is one of those places you never forget. And I think my all-time favorite restaurants in Portland too is Street and Co.
I don't think I've ever been there.
That is my all-time favorite restaurant that I've ever been to. And the seafood, the clams or the mussels, I'm sorry, as the appetizer is in this lemon garlic butter sauce.
Oh, God.
Incredible. Best mussels I've ever had. And then the plates you can get, a lot of them are cooked in like on the saute pan. They deliver the food in the saute pan that they cooked it on, and you eat it straight from the pan, and it's just an incredible dish.
Oh gosh, we're doing this at like just so you know, if you're listening to this, we're doing this at like 5 p.m. and I haven't eaten very much today, so I'm just super hungry now.
Yeah, not the best time for East Coast time right now.
And yet here we are. So we're gonna do. I'm gonna save that for a little later because I have a couple of questions from one of your teammates, a fellow lefty, Dominic Labruno. Had a couple of questions for me to ask you. And the first is, how far are you in your coloring book?
I've accomplished a few more pages this off season, probably about 4 to 6 more pages in my coloring book. When we were both hurt last year and we were sitting around in Florida, you get tired of the screens, you get tired of TV, you get tired of your phone, and you're like, I need something new. I need something to stimulate my mind. And so we went and bought coloring books at Barnes and Noble, and we would just start coloring when we were bored, and it really helped pass the time when we were sitting in the hotels.
What kind of coloring books? Because I've seen my fiance likes those too, so I'm not. I know what you're talking about, but like, what kind were your coloring books?
Called like Worlds of Wonder, and we just bought like a 40-pack of coloring pencils to go with it, and it was almost like dreamlike, like a hot air balloon carrying an elephant, and then like a bike made out of flowers, and like this Smurf looking page, and then it felt like I was like was watching the Smurfs like on one of the pages, like there's like these little like mushroom houses. There's another one where there's like a windmill sitting above like on an island, and like there's like a little underwater scene in the picture too. And so it was just fun to just let your mind wander and carry away in that.
It sounds very relaxing. I do have a second question from Dominic, though, and that's on a scale of 1 to 300 yard shuttles, how eyewash is your pregame scream? And I have no idea what that means. I feel like I just read another language, but that
did just run another language. I would say there's no eyewash. I think it really helps me get in the zone and get me into that competition mode. But that pregame scream really alters my brain. It alters my my mindset going into it.
So is that like a pregame ritual you have?
It's become one. Yes, it's become one in the last year and a half or so, and I think it has helped. I picked it up from another one of our teammates from 21, Seth Blair, and he used to do it, and it kind of clicked for me. Things started clicking with it.
So I'm gonna now that we're I actually do have one question about Dominic. Has he introduced you to RuneScape?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, I remember playing RuneScape when I was like in 8 years old and 10 years old, whenever it was.
Right.
It was big at the time. But yes, I think it's unbelievable that he still plays RuneScape to this day. It's one of those where you just sometimes you gotta let him be. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. But I will never be joining RuneScape again. I left that stage of my life when I was about 10 years old, and he still brought it back, and now we're in our mid-20s, and he's still doing it.
But it's gone for it. The Rio Gomez RuneScape is gone for good.
Yes, my RuneScape days are gone for good, and it's more one of those where I walk in, see what he's doing. He's playing RuneScape. I'm like, oh, great. All right. Well, I'll see you later. I don't want to, watch. I don't want to support. I don't want him to think that it's cool what he's doing. If he needs it for his escape, sure, but I'm not going to let him know that it's cool.
You do not consider yourself a RuneScape enabler, is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm not going to condone that at all.
Okay, so back to our Twitter questions. This one is from Firefighter 4547. Do you think that you can strike Marcelo Meyer out?
I mean, I think anybody can be struck out, and I think anybody can hit a home run off anybody. I haven't actually watched him enough to see what his swing or what his approach looks like. But yeah, I believe in myself. I believe in myself that I could strike him out.
That's a good answer, and this is a follow-up from Brad Chandler. If you could face any batter, past or present, who would you like to face?
Ooh, I don't know if I've ever thought about that one. Probably Ken Griffey Jr.
Ooh.
I think he had the prettiest swing, and it was coming from the left side. And
so you'd be the guy pitching to him, especially if there's time travel involved with this. You could go in as like a one. You could be a loogie for this one. They're bringing you in. This
coming
is your
in
guy.
Just for him, and that's it. And you know what? Since it's hypothetical, if I gave one up to him, I'd be okay with it because I'd have the best view in the house to watch that swing happen and watch the ball connect. So
it would be one of those like I ain't even mad.
Yeah, you're just like, wow. There's something about a good home run. I love giving up a good home run. Not that I love giving up home runs, but if I'm gonna give up a home run, it better be a good one.
They have to earn it. And
I don't like the wall scrapers. I don't like the ones that barely sneak out. I like the ones that are just like off the bat, and it's 450 plus, and you're like, wow, I got to turn around and watch this one. Like, this is good for him. He got all of it.
Are there any guys that you struck out that like major leaguers, either during spring training or during a rehab outing for them, where afterwards you were like, I just struck that guy out?
I think, you take it with a grain of salt just because it's early in spring training and, you're like, yeah, I just struck out Xander, or I just struck out, whoever it might be. I think I got Xander a couple times, but it's one of those where you're like, maybe his timing's not there. He's still working things out, just like we're all working things out. So,
or he's as fresh as possible, and you beat him at the peak of his game.
Now that's the optimist way of thinking about it. I like that more.
Optimism can be more fun than realism, I think.
It's not September. He's not beat down and tired from the season. I just got him at his freshest.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely healthy right now. So I'm just looking at a few more of these. This is from Andrew Kendo, and is life on the road going to get easier for players in terms of travel and accommodations? Or I guess maybe has it gotten easier?
100%. I think ever since post-COVID, things have gotten a lot easier and a lot smoother. And so pre-COVID, I mean, the biggest thing that's changed is now that we play the 6-game series, and then every Monday's an off day. And so, we might go to Reading, Pennsylvania, and it's a 7-hour bus ride, but we'll bus on that Monday, which is fine. So then we get in the afternoon or the evening, and, you have that day to hang out. And then we leave Sunday after the day game, back from Reading back to Portland, and we get back, late Sunday night, but we have all of Monday off. And so, like, in that sense, the schedule has just cleared things up and made things so much more manageable and easier. Where in the past, pre-COVID, in 19 and 18, I mean, I can remember we'd go 20 days without an off day. And in those 20 days, 9 of them are a road trip. And it's a 3-game series here. And then the 3-game series is over. And then that night we are busing to the next city. And we might get in at 3 a.m, but we play that same day that night. And the next, 3-game later, we bus to the next city. And now we're, wherever else. And then same thing, we get in late at night and we're playing that next night. And so now with the guaranteed off day once a week and that and the scheduling of a 6-game series has made travel and life so much more manageable, so much more easier where, we get a lot of these, now that I'm one of the older guys in the locker room in the clubhouse at spring training. I mean, you see these younger guys who were drafted in 2020 or sooner, since then, and they don't know what it's like. They never had to experience those days where you're just like, wow, this is game 17 in a row and it's mid-July and we're out here in Myrtle Beach or
the air conditioning just broke.
Yeah. And you're just like, we haven't had an off day and our sleep schedules are all over the place and we're all in one bus and, things, they have it easy now in my eyes.
All that's good. That's good to hear, but it's also good to hear that you were able to get through it before it got better. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I had nothing.
Oh, I was going to say we got a lightning round for you now. Where I'm just going to ask you. You've got 10 seconds to answer these. Favorite food?
My mom's eggplant parmesan.
Favorite movie?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Last TV show you watched?
I've been watching in between Seinfeld and the Jack Ryan show on Amazon.
Oh, the John Krasinski one?
Yes, with John Krasinski.
What is your top 5, the first 5 songs on your playlist or your road trip?
Ooh, okay. I love country and I love indie, so I'm gonna put some Zach Bryan in there. Okay. He's one of my favorites, and then we'll mix in some, not sure, maybe some Red Hot Chili Peppers and some John Mayer and Lumineers, something around that type of genre.
Okay, you got one more. You got one more to pick.
Shoot. Okay. And then we'll go old school with Tom Petty.
Oh, nice. That's a very good one. I actually got to see John Mayer for the first time back in May. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I saw him a few years back and it was incredible. I mean, what he can do on the guitar is just something special.
You don't appreciate it, I feel like, until you actually see it live, and then you're just like, this guy's a freak. Like,
yeah, the concert felt like one big jam fest. He's just adding in guitar solos and riffing, and they're just jamming together as a band. And a song that might be 3 minutes turned into 8 minutes, and you're not upset about it at all.
Yeah, that's the side of a good show too, when they drag it out like that, and you're just like,
yeah,
give me more.
Well, it's different from the studio version of the song, and it just creates like something different where it's like, all right, this is a lasting impression, and it's a memorable concert that's different from what I can hear on Spotify.
Yeah, definitely, because the amount that you're spending, it should be different because you could just stay home and listen to it.
Exactly.
If you wanted that exact same thing. Okay, a couple more of these ones. Favorite vacation spot?
Hawaii.
Funniest teammate?
Jake Thompson.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Favorite dinosaur?
We'll go Brachiosaurus.
Classic pick. Last but not least, what is your golf handicap?
Probably about 20, maybe 22. I'm there to have fun. I have a good time.
No, that's
about 92, 95, somewhere in there, but I had fun.
That's the most important thing with it. You can, when you're older, that's when you can get really good at golf, when you can just focus on that. That's what I think my dad's done.
I'd love to be good at golf now, but it doesn't seem attainable right now.
It's hard, it's hard to be. You look at someone like John Smoltz, who's like, what was he like? He was like a professional level golfer and a Hall of Fame pitcher. Like, I don't know how guys. It's like save some of that talent for the rest of us,
Spread the wealth here.
Now, this is a question from one of my co-hosts, Brandon Brewer, and he said, You went to the same school as Rob Refsnyder. Have you talked to Rob either while in college at U of A or since being drafted?
Rob got drafted, I think, in 2012, which was before I even graduated high school. But he is one of the heroes of Arizona. They won the national championship while he was at Arizona, and he was the MVP of the team. And he was the best player that year in Omaha. And so I'd obviously always known about him, but I actually have never met him until I think it was last year at spring training when he showed up for the Red Sox. I knew some of the other guys who were around the same draft class as his that I've met, and they're all still friends to this day. So it made it really easy to get along and get to know him.
Yeah, love to see a guy like that be as successful as he was last year.
It's a great story. I mean, he obviously he was a high round pick, but he's been grinding his way, basically in that 4A, that purgatory of getting to the show, going back down, getting to the show, going back down, and then finally last year he proved what he could do when he's in the lineup every day, and just to be able to see that, I was like, I'm glad he got rewarded with this year's contract because it's much.
I mean, you talk about Griffey's swing, and I'm not going to compare Refsnyder's swing to Griffey's, but that's one pretty swing Rob Refsnyder has.
He does have a pretty swing. I will give him that.
So I've got two more questions for you. This is the last of our user questions, and it is from Rich6567, and that's, what is the biggest lesson about baseball that you learned from your father, Pedro Gomez?
Probably self-belief and self-confidence. I mean, baseball is a team sport, but it's very individualistic. There's no one else on the mound. There's no one else at the plate, and it's very much on you. And so even though, yes, there are defenders behind you and there's other batters in the lineup, when it's your turn, it is just a series of one-on-one battles. And so, when you're out there, there's no one else, there's no coach, there's no parent, there's no teammate to help you throw the baseball. And I think that it's so important and such a hard lesson to learn, but it takes that time of growing up and, becoming the adult and the human man that you're supposed to be, is that, that it's been taught, the importance of self-belief, self-confidence. And I think that it's such an important trait that can carry over to everything. I mean, that's not just a baseball or just a sports thing. I mean, that ability to be, to have that self-confidence and believe in yourself. I mean, that carries over to every facet of life. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I can take away from my dad.
Yeah. Was he, because, I imagine he was traveling a lot with his work, but was he at most of your games growing up?
He was. And that's what was great was that, obviously he was gone for work. He might be gone the whole month of October, and he'll be gone, throughout the season for Tuesday night baseball or Sunday night baseball, whatever reports, stories, Barry Bonds, whatever it might be. But when he was home, he was home. And he didn't have to, he didn't bring work with him home. So when he was home, in town, he was there. He's cooking dinners. He's running errands. He's picking us up from school, going to every practice, going to every game. And so that was unbelievable. And the other thing too is, Tucson, University of Arizona is in Tucson, and that's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from where I grew up. And it was very easy for him and my mom to get in the car and come down for the weekend, come down for the Friday night game, stay the night, be there for the Saturday night game, drive back, or however it was. And so they were able to come to a lot of games, and that was great.
Yeah, I would imagine your mom's also a pretty big baseball fan.
She, not as much as my dad, obviously. She obviously now by this age she knows the game, but when they first started dating and were married, she did not know the game, and she's learned over the years.
But I mean, it sounds like she's like very proud of you also, just from everything you've said, which is, I don't know, like, I feel like for me, like, at least whenever I do something like well that I know I've done well, I just want my parents to hear about it. And like, I don't know, like you kind of feel like there's a part of you that's doing it for them also. And
absolutely,
I don't know, like I don't know, that's got to be really cool for like, for them to see you get drafted and to see you pitch on at a professional stage. Like that's got to be absolutely awesome.
I think those were some of the best times is when they would come out and, whether it was in Lowell or Greenville or Salem, them making the flight, or, Portland, making the flight, coming out all the way across the country to the Eastern Seaboard to come watch baseball. Those were always the best. And, there was times where my dad would be working, whether he was in Bristol or, he had a Baltimore Orioles game or whatever it was. And he's like, oh, well, I'm not that far from Frederick, so let me just drive over and I'll come watch you pitch down there for a few days and things like that. So that was always great.
Yeah. So last question for you, and this is what I always end it on, but do you have any pets? Did you grow up with any pets? Do you have any now?
I don't have any pets right now. I grew up with dogs. I would love to have a dog. But right now, just with baseball and, that gypsy lifestyle of being on the move for 6 months at home, 6 months on the season, it's not. I can't take care of a dog like I'd want to. So I'd have
it's
to
no life for a puppy.
Yeah, it's not the same. I want to be able to, take him out and do things and be there, obviously throughout the year. But yeah, so not yet.
What kind of dog did you grow up with?
They're dogs from the pound, but one was like an Australian Shepherd mix. And then the other one was another type of Shepherd mix. I can't remember, but pound dogs always. That's always been my my go, is just the adopt, don't shop style.
Definitely rescues are definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
So I know that you got to head out. So thank you so much for giving us this time and for talking with us. It was really a lot of fun having you here. Where can people follow you on social media if they want to?
So the only social media I am on is Instagram. I don't have Twitter, don't have Facebook, but I do have Instagram. So it's Rio_Gomez is my Instagram handle, and I'll promise to be a little more lively with it and keep it more updated.
Well, best of luck as you head out to spring training. Looking forward to seeing how you progress. There's definitely some spots for some left-handed pitching on this team. So looking forward to following you progressing there, and just best of luck this season.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much.
We'll see y'all next time.